Hello and welcome back. It is me, Yanaha Galilani. I am back again to read you chapter 4 for today, and I have a few announcements from your teacher when the video is over, so please don't click me off right away. Today we are going to be talking about the changing landscape of California. Yesterday we read some different myths about in the Native American culture, and today we're going to talk about the impact of arrivals, miners and missionaries on California and the Native American way of life. So sit back and relax. Feel free to follow along with your reader online, and I hope you enjoy. At the eastern edge of California's Central Valley, where the grassland met the jagged Sierra Nevada mountains, there is a city named Oroville. In Spanish, oro is the word for gold. This city was once a small town. The town earned its name during the California Gold Rush, when thousands of gold prospectors flocked to the valley in search of quick riches. Oroville was just one of many lawless, rowdy towns that sprang up all over Northern California during that time. Most people who joined the gold rush never did find much gold. However, they did find other forms of wealth. Oroville was at the head of the Feather River, just beneath the Sierra Nevada mountains. Supplies for the gold miners were shipped up that river from Sacramento. People who lived in Oroville did not need to look for gold because they grew rich selling shovels and food to the miners up in the hills. When the gold rush ended, pioneers moved in and carved the land into farms. Thanks to warm, sunny summers, wet winters, and rich soil, the Central Valley was perfect for farming. A few years later, the Transcontinental Railroad was finished, linking California to the rest of the United States. The railroad passed right through downtown Oroville, making it possible for Central Valley farmers to send their goods to markets all over the country. Ishi, lone survivor. It was in downtown Oroville in the summer of 1911, many years after the gold rush of the 1840s and 1850s, that a middle-aged man named Ishi, the last of his people, emerged from the wilderness. It was a hot, dry summer, just like every summer in the valley. A few nights before, a thunderstorm had rolled through, and a bolt of lightning had started a wildfire in the dry, grassy foothills across the river. Oroville was safe from the flames, but the winds blew smoke through the town for many days. Ishi must have looked like a ghost to anyone who saw him sneaking down the smoke-filled street. He wore only a tattered loincloth made of rabbit hide, and he carried a bow and a small quiver of arrows. Ishi was starving, alone, and scared. There was a time when settlers lived alongside Native Americans in California's Central Valley. Indeed, there was a time when Native Americans were the only people in what is now California. But in 1911, Ishi was a very unusual sight. He was certainly not the last Native American in California, but he was probably the last to leave the woods and the old way of living. He was certainly the last of his tribe, the Yad people. Why do we still remember a lonely, hungry man named Ishi who was searching for food on that smoky, hot summer day? What happened to the rest of his people and all the other native tribes of California? Unfortunately, the story of what happened to the Native American population of California presents a sad, dark chapter in American history. The Native Americans of California were pushed aside to make way for gold mines, railroads, farms, towns, and cities. It is impossible to know exact numbers, but the best estimates are there were around 300,000 Native Americans in California when the first Spanish settlers arrived. There were well over 100 different tribes and a wide variety of cultures, languages, and customs. Mostly they lived in small villages ranging from 100 to 1,000 people. There were no formal borders or property lines, but each tribe was adapted to life in a specific area. All the California tribes lived a hunter-gatherer lifestyle. Acorns were a major source for food throughout the region. Acorns are a nut from the oak tree. You would not want to eat an acorn raw because the very taste is bitter. But if you grind it up into flour and soak it, you can remove most of the bitterness and use it to make tasty bread. Fish were another major food source for many tribes. The tribes caught fish from the oceans, the rivers, and the lakes. Besides acorn and fish, each region had various animals and plants for people to hunt and gather, such as rabbits and deer, plus various roots, berries, and other gifts from nature. Trade was also an important part of tribal life in California. If they could not find what they needed in nature, the people could trade with a neighboring tribe. Coastal tribes had had access to lots of fish, but they needed more acorns. Inland tribes had plenty of acorns, but not always enough meat. Tribes in the Central Mountains had access to a special rock called obsidian, or volcanic glass, which was valuable for making razor-sharp arrowheads and knives. Obsidian was far more valuable to Native Americans than gold or silver. They did not find too much use for those metals, though they did know where to find them. Canoes played an essential role in the culture and lifestyle of nearly every California tribe. Different regions made different kinds of canoes. In Southern California, they built big tomals out of wooden planks. Only specially trained craftsmen could build them, and they never shared their secrets. Tomals could carry several paddlers and hundreds of pounds of trade goods. Best of all, the sturdy, speedy tomals were seaworthy, so southern tribes could paddle up the coast and trade with northern tribes. In the Central Valley, the people made their canoes by weaving long, tough reeds or river grass. They did not need to paddle into the rough ocean. Instead, they had wide, lazy rivers and sparkling lakes. And all the way up north, where the great redwood trees grow up into the clouds, people made dugout canoes from hollowed-out logs. Dugout canoes were tough enough for the ocean, but also nimble enough to survive the wild mountain rivers. Daily life focused on securing enough food for everyone. Fortunately, California was a land of plenty, so if everyone worked hard, there was usually enough food to go around. In good years, there was more than enough food, so the people had time for other things. Basket weaving was common throughout California. Tribes of the Central Valley were highly skilled, producing a variety of colorful baskets in all shapes and sizes. There was also time for fun and games. In Northern California, children enjoyed a game similar to soccer. The boys and girls all played together. Boys were only allowed to kick the ball, whereas the girls could kick it, throw it, or carry it to the goal. However, a boy was also allowed to pick up a girl and carry her into the goal with the ball. That's weird. As with all Native Americans, the people of California built their houses using the best materials available in their home territory. Southern tribes used small trees and reeds to build tools. A tool was a round, one-room hut. Despite being made from reeds, tools were strong, able to withstand wind and rain, and cozy enough for mild Southern California winters. The Miwok people and other tribes of Central and Northern California preferred the Umacha, which is shaped like a teepee but made of long wooden rails instead of buffalo hide. Farther north in the redwood forest, the Wiyot people and their northern neighbors built stout, sturdy houses out of redwood planks. Roundhouses... Whoopsie daisies. Roundhouses were the central feature in most villages. No matter what type of house they built, and no matter whether the tribe was large or small, wealthy or poor, there was almost always a roundhouse in the middle of the village. The roundhouse was used for ceremonies and important meetings. The roundhouse was also where the tribal religious leaders or shamans carried out important rituals. Religious beliefs reflected a close connection to the cycles of nature and to animals. While all tribes had unique beliefs, myths, and rituals, the people generally believed that they shared a special kinship or bond with other living things. They felt fortunate and thankful to live in a place with so many resources. The Wiyot tribe of the north, with their dugout canoes and stout wooden homes, held the World Renewal Ceremony each autumn. This special dance marked the beginning of the new year. The World Renewal Ceremony was hosted by the wealthiest village. Everyone was invited, and nobody was ever turned away. The dance could go on for 7 days or more. Although there was feasting and great fun, the ceremony had a serious purpose. The people showed their respect for nature and prayed for a good year ahead. California was a land of plenty, but there were always challenges and dangers. The Wiyot hoped their ceremony would help prevent natural disasters such as earthquakes, floods, or the failure of the acorn crop. Spanish settlers colonized California beginning in the mid-1700s, and things changed quickly for Native Americans. Instead of trying to push the California tribes out of the way, the Spanish sent missionaries to persuade the people to change their way of life. Missionaries were determined to convert the Native American people to Christianity and to educate and, in their minds, civilize them and to teach them to become farmers. A typical mission included a church and new houses for Native Americans, plus thousands of acres of farmland. However, while the missionaries offered peace, they had brought soldiers with them too. They gave the tribes a choice: live at the mission or fight against these soldiers. Once they moved to the missions, Native Americans had to dress like Europeans. They had to stop practicing their own beliefs and customs. Mostly, however, they worked on the farmland, essentially a kind of forced labor. Not surprisingly, many tribes did not want to give up their homelands. At first, the Spanish could not force many people to move. However, without realizing it, European explorers and settlers brought a deadly weapon to the Americas: disease. Smallpox and other illnesses devastated Native American populations in Southern California. The people had no immunity to these diseases. Within a few years, some tribes were almost totally wiped out. The survivors had little choice but to live at the missions. Eventually, the Native American groups of Northern California suffered a similar fate. First came the explorers, followed by the miners and the settlers. These new arrivals were all hungry for the land and its resources. They came by the thousands to mine and to build farms and railroads and cities. They had guns, plus help from the U.S. Army, and they were determined to own every inch of valuable land in California. Tribes were forced to move out into small reservation lands. Those who refused were often massacred. Remember Ishi, the wild man who emerged from the wilderness in Oroville? When he was just a boy, his people, the Yahi, refused to move off their land. Gold miners attacked Ishi's village and killed most of his family and friends. He and a handful of others managed to survive in the wild. Years passed, and one by one, all the other Yahi died. At last, only Ishi remained in the woods and canyons where his ancestors once lived. Hungry and tired, with no place left to go, Ishi finally came in from the wilderness. Ishi did find a place in modern society. He devoted much of the rest of his life to teaching anthropologists about the Yahi language, mythology, and customs. The Yahi tribe is gone now, but in some ways the culture lives on, and Ishi's knowledge remains for everyone to learn. It is also important to note that today there are still over 100 tribes in California. They do not all live according to all the old traditions and lifestyles, but there has been a major revival of traditional Native American culture and tribal life over the past several decades. In fact, there are twice as many Native Americans in California today as there were when the first Spanish explorers arrived. Some live on reservations, and some still practice the ancient art and customs. In the north, the Wiyot still hold world renewal ceremonies each year. Despite terrible hardships endured by their ancestors, these proud people continue to ensure that their culture survives. And that is where we're going to stop today. That is a very ambitious group of people, and they do still survive today. And it's very, very fascinating if you ever get a chance to go to California and potentially talk to one of them. A couple announcements from your teacher. First, after you turn this video off, you need to go to Google Classroom and work on your assignment. If you have finished all 4 assignments for the week, you may hit submit and submit your work, because tomorrow we will not be reading a chapter. Your teacher will be back to give you an alternate assignment. Second, if you are not using a computer to work on these worksheets and questions, it's going to be a lot more difficult, and you're not going to be able to actually type in the document properly. So if you still need a computer, you need to make sure that you call the school and set up an appointment to pick one up. Other than that, I don't have anything else. I hope you all have a great night. I will not see you again until Monday. So enjoy your weekend, because tomorrow you will have a different assignment from your teacher, something called a Mastery Connect. I think you know what that is. But have a great night. See you later.